On May 25, 2025, exactly 20 years since Rafael Nadal's first match at Roland Garros, the entire tennis world gathered at Philippe Chatrier Court. After 112 wins and 14 titles, it was time to say goodbye. The Paris crowd rose for their loudest, most emotional standing ovation ever, honoring their greatest champion. This was Nadal's grand finale on the court where he had created history, again and again. The media today offer to the youth Captain America, Superman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, fictional heroes with impossible superpowers. But Rafael Nadal is our real-life hero, a champion forged with human superpowers that have elevated him to the very Olympus of greatness. With every shot, every point, every match at Roland Garros, Rafa has redefined what it means to be unstoppable, leaving behind a legacy built not on fantasy, but on focus, passion, and an iron will that knows no limits. It all began in 2004.
Well, actually, the first time that I visited Roland Garros had been, I think 2004. I was in crutches. It was a strange feeling because I supposed to be playing already that year, but I had my first foot injury. I remember even on crutches going at the highest part of the stadium and saying, hopefully next year I will be here to do good things.
And he finally got his chance. In 2005, still a teenager, Nadal made his debut in Paris. The tournament became famous for his first ever clash with Roger Federer at a Grand Slam. In the semis, dressed in his iconic green sleeveless shirt and white shorts, Rafa won 3-1. And the epic rivalry, soon to be called Fedal, had its first chapter. In the final, he faced Mariano Puerta, the Argentine whose career had been overshadowed by doping controversies. Nadal lost the first set in a tiebreak, but quickly regained control. In the end, it was 3-1 in sets, and Rafa, collapsing on clay after victory, became an iconic image, marking the first of many times he'd do that. The next year was the most emotional for Nadal. He missed the Australian Open due to an injury related to Muller-Weiss syndrome, a rare degenerative disease affecting the navicular bone in his foot. Most people with this syndrome can barely play amateur sports, but Nadal? He was built different. For him, the rules that held others back were simply obstacles to step over. In the quarters, he defeated Djokovic, and this time, Federer was waiting for him in the final. Once again, history was made. This was their first ever meeting in a Grand Slam final. Roger played an insane first set, dominating 6-1. But Rafa had already been in that situation before. No reason to panic. And just like that, title number 2 was locked down. Just a few months earlier, he thought his career was over. The next, he was back at the top of the world. 07 and 08 were pretty much the same story, against Djokovic in the semis and Federer in the final. With his third and fourth consecutive titles at Roland Garros, beating the biggest rivals, he was already cementing his GOAT status on clay. But 2008 deserves special attention. That one was on another level. Rafa didn't lose a single set throughout the tournament, and in the final, he played what was probably the most brutal match of his career. He won 3-0, allowing Federer to win just 4 games the entire match. An overpowering performance beyond anything we've seen before. Even Roger admitted, Rafa has dominated this tournament like never before, like Bjorn Borg. It's the strongest Rafa I've ever seen. In 2009, right after winning the Australian Open, Rafa got hit with some devastating news. His parents were getting a divorce. Later, he admitted, "The news left me stunned. My parents were the pillar of my life, and that pillar had crumbled. The continuity I so valued in my life had been cut in half, and the emotional order I depend on had been dealt a shocking blow. Our whole world was falling apart. This emotional turmoil started showing on his game. For the first time in his career, Nadal lost a match at Roland Garros. It was Robin Soderling who took him down in the 4th round. The public was shocked. Nadal was no longer invincible on clay, though most people didn't know what was really going on behind the scenes. So 2010 was a huge year for Nadal, the year he was about to show everyone that he was still the best clay player the world had ever seen. And as life often does, it gave us another reminder that sometimes reality is better than fiction. In the final, Nadal was facing Soderling again, but this time, Rafa came ready. Revenge was served cold. In 2011, Rafa beat Soderling in the quarterfinals. Once again, a dominant 3-0 win. Then he faced Federer for the 4th time in a French Open final. But here, Roger brought his A game, giving Rafa a much tougher fight.
Nadal.
Still, Nadal keeps making history. That was his 6th Roland Garros title and his 4th victory over Federer in a final. In 2012, Rafa didn't drop a single set leading up to the final, where he faced Novak Djokovic for the first time in a Roland Garros final. After 4 intense sets, Rafa claimed the title, but that match is mostly remembered as just the warm-up for what would become an epic rivalry on French clay between these two legends. So, the very next year, we witnessed a spectacle in the semifinals. One of the greatest matches ever played on the French Open courts. Nadal versus Djokovic. After Rafa won the 3rd set 6-1 and went up 2-1 in sets, it looked like this was going to be just another routine win for him. Yet, it turned out to be anything but that. In the 4th set, at 5-5, with a breakpoint for Nadal, Djokovic hit a forehand down the line wide. And just when it seemed like the match was over, Novak struck back. In the tiebreak, Novak showed why he's the king of tiebreaks, winning 7-3 to level things at 2-2. In the 5th set, we witnessed some atomic tennis. 33 winners and an all-out war from both sides. Then, at 8-7, Rafa got 3 consecutive break, set, and match points. When Djokovic sent the last ball out, it was hard to say who was happier, Tony or Rafa. Both knew how crucial it was for Rafa to maintain that aura of invincibility against his biggest rivals on the Parisian clay. Nadal would go on to cruise through the final, defeating David Ferrer in straight sets. In 2014, we got to witness another epic tennis showdown. This time, Djokovic and Nadal met in the final. After 3.5 hours of fierce action, Nadal claimed his 9th title. But in 2015, Rafa lost to Novak in the quarterfinals, and the following year he had to pull out before the 3rd round due to injury. At that point, it seemed like Rafa's career was on a downhill slope, and there was no way he was going to get back to his old self. But Nadal showed us why he was stronger than any injury. The relentless champion's mentality, the hunger for wins, it was all still there. In 17 and 18, he came back to take down Wawrinka and Thiem in the finals, winning his 10th and 11th titles at Roland Garros. 2017 was especially spectacular, the so-called La Decima, when his uncle Tony handed him the Jubilee Trophy, and the organizers prepared a special choreography in the stands. The year when he was absolutely unstoppable, not losing a single set, not even a single tie-break played. And over 7 rounds of the tournament, he was only losing 5 games per match on average. That was something really impressive, a level of dominance like the one from 2008. In 2019, Rafa faced Roger Federer in the semifinals for what would be their final meeting at Roland Garros. Rafa made it look easy, winning 6-3, 6-4, 6-2. In 6 matches against Roger on the Parisian clay, Nadal kept a perfect record, losing just 4 sets in total. Unmatched supremacy over one of the greatest players the game has ever seen. And in the final, he claimed his 12th title, beating Dominic Thiem once again, who said, "To play Rafa here on Philippe Chatrier is the toughest challenge. But I guess, also outside of tennis, it's probably one of the most difficult things ever in sports in general to beat him here on this court." The next year, with the pandemic messing up the schedule, the tournament was played at an unusual time, early fall. But that didn't throw Nadal off. In the final, he absolutely wiped the floor with Djokovic, winning 6-0, 6-2, 7-5. After the match, Djokovic was full of praise. "I admire all his achievements, especially the one here. It's a stunning record that he's got on this court. All the superlatives you can use. Rafa deserves them." In 2021, Rafa lost his second match to Novak at Roland Garros, and his third overall. But in 2022, he made history one last time. It was a really tough season, with his body starting to give out. Real drama went down after his win in the second round. Once again, the same foot problem came back. Rafa couldn't even put any weight on his foot anymore. He stayed up until 5 in the morning in tears, thinking his career was over. But the doctors managed to numb the nerve with an injection, and Rafa pushed through the tournament. It sounds impossible, but that's Rafa, the superhero of modern tennis. In the quarterfinals, he played his final Grand Slam match against Djokovic and pulled off a 3-1 victory. Then, in the final, he beat Casper Ruud for his record-breaking 14th title at Roland Garros. In 2023, Rafa didn't play due to injury. Then, in 2024, we saw the last act, the last dance. After being plagued by injuries, he played his final match at Roland Garros. In the first round, he was beaten by Alexander Zverev, marking just his 4th loss ever in Paris. One could argue that last loss shouldn't even count because it was clear Rafa was out there playing on pure guts and heart, just wanting to finish his career on the biggest stage with dignity. At the end, there was never any doubt about it. When it comes to tennis, the toughest test in the world is Rafael Nadal at Roland Garros in a best-of-5 set match. With that lethal topspin forehand, unmatched determination, footwork, and movement that makes you feel like he can get to every single ball, Rafa was like a nightmare come to life, absolutely destroying his opponents, both mentally and physically. Rafa's living room, the Parisian clay, and Philippe Chatrier, where he's lifted an incredible 14 trophies. Across 2 decades at Roland Garros, Nadal has racked up 112 wins and only 4 losses, giving him an insane win rate of 96.5%. In 2008, 2010, 2017, and 2020, he won the French Open without dropping a single set. Just a few stats from a list that will leave all of us speechless forever. Ladies and gentlemen, the undisputed GOAT on clay courts, the greatest player to ever play at Roland Garros, Rafael Nadal.
I am only a very good tennis player, that's true. That's the thing, but for the rest of the things in life, that's the most important things. I am just another human person.